Go ahead and call the meeting to order.
Thank you so much.
It is a little
Yeah, just let me
afternoon.
know if I need to do anything on our end, and like I said, we're happy to do whatever we need to do, but I just wanted to make sure you're aware. So, thank you.
Happy Monday.
We will do the prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Larry, would you do the prayer for us?
Let's pray. Thank you, Father, for we can gather here to do this business in front of you, in front of citizens. I thank you for the blood of Christ, Father, that puts us in a position, Father, to be at peace with you and at peace with others. Thank you, Father, for our agenda today, and I pray you'll accomplish everything that you choose and use us, Father, as your instruments. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our first item is the approval of the minutes from the July 11th, 22 regular meeting.
Excuse me. I do have a comment about the minutes. The grants that we've been working on with the trails, we're working on 2 big ones right now, and I misspoke last meeting.
Okay.
In the minutes, it says that for the Safe Routes, Safe Streets for All grant, it says that we're wanting the county to be the applicant. That's for the other grant we're working on. We actually want Grand Gateway to be the applicant.
Okay.
So just FYI, it should be Grand Gateway, and that was my misspeaking, so sorry about that.
Okay, so any motion would be with those amended.
I'll make a motion to approve with that amended, please.
We have a motion, second.
Second.
Okay, Darla, if you will do the roll, please.
Okay. Swordall,
Yes.
Durr,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes. Okay, our next item is petitions from the audience.
I got a question. I'm wanting to speak about the Castle Theater. Should I do it now or at that time? Is there going to be discussion?
Go ahead now, please. You can add 2 when we get to that section if there's something else that,
Well, I just am hoping that y'all will try and save the building. I know there's been talk about, what can be done with it. I know it'd be very expensive to tear it down, and I'm hoping that you could use that money to fix it up. When I was on the council, it's been probably 6, 7, 8 years ago, they talked about putting a roof on it, and believe it or not, I was the lone yes vote. Normally, I was the lone no vote to put a roof on it to just save it until something could be done with it. If you tear it down, I don't think the lot will be usable for much. I don't think you could really sell it and the new owners be able to meet the codes, where if the city keeps it, I think a lot of the codes could maybe be grandfathered, and maybe even get with the school and see if maybe you could team up together and come up with use, because maybe the school could use it. But it's a historical building, got a lot of memories, and also I feel like since it was donated to the city, I feel like it's the city's responsibility to show people that you're going to take care of what they donate. My family donated a lot here on Main Street to be used as a pocket park, and nothing's ever been done, and it sure kind of hurts when you feel like you want to give to somebody, but yet they don't appreciate. So I'm hoping you'll try and save the PYO. Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other petitions from the audience? Okay, we will move on. Barbara, report from the chamber on upcoming events that we can help with.
We've been obviously working on Rocklahoma, which is 3 weeks away, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of September. The very next weekend is Dam Jam, which is the bicycle tour. I want to say about Dam Jam, I'm proud of what's going on with that. We've made an effort to begin this year, as we looked out, to start really working with the businesses along the route. Because before, we would put the rest stops in parks and things and then bring people in to run them. And this year, we have Cosby's Catfish Restaurant as a partner, and also Mid-America Outdoors. And those of you who have not been there, you should go take a look at the place. It's really amazing. And it's going to be a huge asset for Northeast Oklahoma and totally tie into what we're doing with trails and everything. And they're also working with Langley and Disney on their trails. So it's turning into more than just significant new business enterprise in Northeast Oklahoma. And we also have Boomerang this year, who has purchased little backpacks for all the riders, for goodie bags. So it's an effort that we started, and it's working, we think, and we're happy to bring the businesses from throughout Northeast, mainly Mays and a little bit of Delaware County into the effort. And Born and Raised is the 17th and 18th. If you know anyone who would like to go see Born and Raised and like to put in a few hours of volunteer work, we would love to have them. Rocklahoma, we have actually cut off the volunteers. And we have plenty, and we're not totally cutting them off, we're starting a wait list. But that one's done really well, but we still need some more for Born and Raised.
So Barbara, you had said, I believe it was in the chamber meeting that I attended, that you were working on a plan or some sort of shuttle that would help bring people like during breakfast into Pryor or things like that to help shuttle people back and forth. How is that going?
The chamber has always done that, ever since, for 20 years, ever since Country Fever started, we did. It has grown to the point that it was impossible for us, quite frankly, because not getting the shuttle necessarily, but we don't have control over the parking and the traffic control out there at all. So we told them that they needed to take it over. I have phone calls into AEG. I'm not sure where that is, and we'll certainly keep working on it because that's something we need to have, if at all possible. But we turned that over to Rocklahoma and Born and Raised, and AEG is actually the controlling entity of that. I did say that we have promotion that we're doing on the Jumbotrons, as well as we're doing some handouts. And our volunteers also man all, that's one of the things we do, it's the hospitality. So we man the information booths and gives us an opportunity to hand out all kinds of things.
So do you have a feel for if anybody is, other than the chamber, especially if you're not doing the shuttle, that has reached out to any of the restaurants or merchants and said, hey, here's the schedule, here's maybe what you should expect?
We talk with all of them every year. We have things that we send out. We can't give them really what to expect. What we do know is that there's not a lot that goes on in the morning. So the restaurants fill up. And basically what we do is just let them know that it's coming. And I mentioned last week or a month that we have now a fairly substantial spot on the electronic billboard at First and Graham, and next week things are going to start going up on that, just so it reminds everyone in town that it's coming and
Okay,
to prepare for it.
thank you.
Another thing we're working pretty heavily on is Jefferson Highway project. And that's really gaining momentum throughout the state, which we're really happy about. It's like the more we can get everybody else into it, the more we'll all have to offer. My friend Don Berger has worked on this from the very beginning, and he is now going back. We had a meeting the other day to go back through and take a look and help us ID some of the spots for historical markers. Whitaker Park was one of the state's camps for overnight camping and staying along the highway, so that surely will need one. The orphanage was here at that point, and so we'll have one there. And then he's come up with, and also some new information that I didn't know. He's been feeding it, and we're going to put a landing page up for right now on the Chamber's website. And we're also putting a page up for the trails. So it's just taking us a little while because there's so much going on, but to push all of that through. We're also, when we renovated the Chamber, we tore out, there were 2 offices, and the back room was a shambles, and we tore all of that out. And the concept with that was to turn it into a training center. It's outfitted, it has plenty of power, even in the floor, so people can plug in computers, as well as around the walls. There are screens and boards and equipment that we have that has not been used a lot. So we've decided, partially because of the Corey workshops I was involved with, that we need something here in town. You know, Mid-America has plenty of power and money and everything to make sure, with good reason, that their education goes well out there. We feel we need to do something for retail, for hospitality especially. So the reason that room has not been used much is because of the sound from the street, the trains and the trucks. And so we have people right now working on researching how we can, if not soundproof it, at least muffle it, so that we can begin to do training out there. And we've been talking with some people, SBA and some others around Northeast Oklahoma, to kind of put a curriculum together. And we'll probably also in the next couple of weeks send out a survey and make sure we're covering the areas we need to cover for the businesses. So we're very excited about that. And along with that, we also are going to start, well, I've talked about it for a while, but we've talked to the other chambers throughout Mays County and even beyond just Mays, to start an informal chamber alliance and get together every couple of months even, and just talk about what everybody's doing, so we can help cross-promoting one another. And supporting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's something else, but I lost the page.
That's a lot.
So I'll do you a favor and cut it short.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Barbara? Okay. Jenny, Main Street.
Hello, everybody. So today I'm going to take less time reporting about what I'm doing, and I have a couple requests and a little bit of updating on things that pertain to that request. So there's, with the TSET grant, we've been meeting with them, and we know that there's a lot that's required for that, and Ariana knows a lot about that too. And one of the last meetings that we had, it was brought to my attention that there would be a need for a construction project manager for the type of project that we have. It's a little bit bigger than some of the smaller ones that they have granted. And so with ours, yes, I am managing the project as a whole, making sure that the plates are still spinning, but there's a need for a construction project manager, and I don't feel comfortable doing that because I don't know about that realm of business or anything that pertains to it. I went ahead and did a little bit of the legwork so I can approach you guys with possibly a number to put on the next agenda to approve to be able to hire someone for that, and that could come out of that Main Street account. But when speaking to someone in the community that knows way more about it than I do, plus they're involved with downtown, they're involved with things in the community, the number that we could look at requesting would be $16,000, if that seems like something that you guys would be comfortable approving. I'd assume it'd have to be on the agenda for next month. So that's my first request. And then my second request is to complete a letter of support from the EDTA to go towards the TAP grant. I've already been emailing Darla and Adam about this, and I think that's already in the works, but I just wanted to make you aware that that request is either going to be completed. I don't know how Adam's going to execute that, if it needs to be an agenda item or if it's something that can just be, since we've discussed it till this point, something that could just be sent over after you guys look at it through an email. So that's my second piece that I'm requesting. And just side note, I know that because that was a concern about the place on Main Street as far as being donated for a pocket park. One of the best things about this is one of our phases is to renovate that into a pocket park. So it's kind of a just a little tidbit, just so you know, for future information. I'm trying to think. We have a lot of extra fundraisers coming up this time of year, but those were the two main things I was hoping to nail down at this meeting. If there are any questions.
Well, I'll just make a comment about the TSET grant. For those of you who don't know, who pays my salary is TSET, so I get to be like on the inside of it to really understand how precise they are, and it's really exciting of how they really hold your feet to the fire for accountability. So I think it is so necessary to hire this construction manager because like we are not construction experts, and so we want to make sure to bring that in. I am curious though, is that the only quote that we have is just that $16,000 from that one person, or?
So it was something to give us an idea to approve.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and so actually the way it came about, I was at a ribbon cutting and Barbara was there, and I mentioned just coming off that call, and they had said, hey, I do that. Would you want me to put something together to give you an idea? So that's what happened, and that's what this is. And so going forward, I know that's something that I'd want to take your advision as far as quoting or anything like that, but it gave a starting point to
Awesome.
at least be able to kind of navigate us where we should go.
Right, yeah, because the exciting thing about TSET is they're going to keep coming out with these types of grants every year, so we just want to make sure that we're very accurate and on point with everything possible. So I think it's very wise to hire a construction manager, but I don't know where we're at with funds as far as in the Main Street account and everything like that, if you guys want to talk about that, but.
And to know, it was their suggestion based off of other communities that they worked with similar projects like this in the past. Other communities used people that were kind of more heavily involved in the project that they were doing, and so that's just a little suggestion that they had. So if you have any other questions or.
Sometimes the design engineer will provide that service. That service always does come from a fee. Normally, if the design engineer provides it, it will be a percentage of the project. So, but if we had somebody locally who has experience and could do that, that seems to be probably a good use of funds and would probably be more economical than going with the design engineer and doing a percentage of the project.
So.
But we can, we would be able to request a quote from the design engineer as well,
Okay,
so
yeah.
that we could have other numbers to look at.
Do you want that to come from me, or do you want that to come from the city?
That would need to come from the city,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
because city would be the one who would be paying
Okay.
that bill, so.
So I'll just wait until next meeting, but at least it's on their
Mm-hmm.
radar.
Has TSA asked, or have they given a deadline, excuse me, for when you need to hire that construction manager?
No, they didn't give a deadline. The next reporting that I have to give them, which obviously it would need to be completed by then, I would at least need to know if it's in the works or if it's been discussed, or I've reported it as I'm doing today, on the 10th, so that's Wednesday.
Okay.
And then our next phone call would be next month, middle of next month, and so ideally, it would be nice to have an answer by next meeting, that way I could tell them the middle of next month, but obviously that timeline has to do with something more than I'm understanding, so.
Okay, and I do think for your letter, we would have to have that on the agenda and then approved
Okay, okay,
at the meeting.
okay.
And Darla and I had some discussion about that, and we kind of got crossed, just like you said in the minutes, about whether it was your grant in
I
the
know
letter or
there's so
whether it was
many.
your grant
Yeah,
in
I
the
know,
letter.
so many.
So we apologize for that, but there was some.
I will note, that letter would be due September 30th, so it would have to be next meeting.
Okay.
Just putting that out there.
Does that letter need to include, because I know we had talked about, there's money already set aside for the matching grant for that one. Would our letter need to include that match, or is that in the city, the council?
So, we're writing it on behalf of the city, so in my eyes, it would need to come from the EDTA.
Okay.
That way, you know, it's someone not just saying, yeah, we are promising ourselves, but the EDTA as a representative of the city kind of checks and balances sort of thing. But I have emailed Adam, and I don't know if I have everyone's email, but you can forward it, or whoever, exactly what it would require in there. Because we need to put the numbers, saying that, yes, we can, you know, spend this money, yes, we have this money, we're planning to do this, but it's all detailed in that email. And I
Awesome.
I don't remember how long I sent it, but if I need to resend it,
No, I have it. It was,
Okay.
I think, last week.
yeah, and so, it says it highlights it all in there.
Perfect.
so,
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Great work.
Okay.
So this is all just part of the grant application, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
grant itself, again, I think I asked this, still
It's okay.
hasn't been granted, for sure, has it?
TSET has,
It has.
TSET has, yep. That has been, we are just fulfilling requirements to be able to make ourselves in good standing to possibly be able to apply for more through TSET in the future.
Okay, so what you have currently been granted, is that what they're requiring a construction project manager, or is it what you're trying to get in the future?
Current, yes, mhm,
Okay.
yeah.
And so it would seem to be appropriate to decide or have something on here of some kind of process you're going to give to take bids on that. And again, whether it's going to be a straight fee or whether it's going to be, you know, so many of them, as we've discussed, charge a percentage.
Right,
of the project.
right.
And
And
so I hate to see us limited to say, well, we're confined to this amount.
Mhm.
When the discussion, maybe they just need assurances that there will be a construction project manager.
They would like to have one hired, and I'm sure they would like a name with how much they want to, you know, make sure it's all in line, but,
So when will you be, I take it you intend to send out bids?
Oh, yeah, I mean,
on that,
there's-
or proposals?
so that's part of this today. I have no knowledge of the bidding process, and
So
this is me.
that would be a request for proposal,
Yeah,
is what that would be.
Because professional service.
Yeah.
But if time is of essence, if those proposals could be somehow presented but then we would know exactly what kind of funds
Yeah.
are necessary to be approved, as you're saying, just some kind of blanket amount, and hope that covers whoever is going to be providing proposals.
Yeah, we can do that. That number was just based off of one proposal, but if you want me to seek them, or if you want to seek them, I guess is what I'm asking.
Oh, I don't know that, I have no special knowledge on that. I don't
I-
think we need.
For the
I think that would come
That's what I meant,
from
the city.
the
Yes,
city
yeah.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
give.
to be
I
on
can
our
give-
agenda next
I
month.
can give direction on
Or
that.
some kind of direction to get the proposals issued so they can be presented to us for, you know, your recommendation.
Yeah, that's a form, that would be a formal request for proposal, just via email. Yeah.
Okay. And then I will just kind of hand that off to you. I'll get you all that information as far as what's
Excellent.
needed.
Perfect.
But
Can do.
past that, I don't know. I know my limits, and I don't feel comfortable doing that. So that's me being honest.
Okay.
And I think that's it, unless you have other
I don't think so.
questions or anything.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So our next item is Mr. Ricky Hayes, our Economic Development Consultant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to be with you today. If I might, Jenny, I can get with you as well on that. OML is coming up just in a few weeks in Tulsa, and there'll be probably a couple of dozen different groups there at vendors at the OML that do project management and that thing. And many of the Tulsa engineering firms have staff specifically assigned to that. So should be easy to find. It may, hopefully we can find one worth the money. We're in the middle of moving our offices into what I hope is the last location. So I've got 15 years of backing up and 15 years of stuff of deciding what to throw away and what to move. But we're doing that today through this week and hopefully be finished this weekend. We're continuing our work with the Echo Alliance folks and have recently, as late as last week, worked on assigning those PSAs and other entitlement discussions with Mr. Ritchie and the mayor. They're very excited about being here. And I also had a couple of calls last week with a developer of a medical skilled care assisted living, senior living facility for Pryor Creek. Working with the local hotel operator who's trying to sell his property in Pryor Creek, and ironically, also working with the Oklahoma City Hotel Group who wants to acquire a site in Pryor Creek. So we're trying to arrange a speed dating arrangement there and see if there's some common ground. What we've heard from the Oklahoma City group is they want to be in the area of the property that's for sale, but don't know if the financial arrangements will work out. Also continuing to have daily discussions almost with several groups of residential developers. Had one this morning on Pryor Creek sites, and then was contacted by a broker and had a Zoom meeting with a multifamily developer with experience in downtown and in historical sites. So told him we would love to talk to him about what we're doing downtown and Jenny's good work there. Also, several retailers are kind of sizing up and analyzing the market, and won't be able to name any of those in an open meeting. But one of the interesting concepts that came out last week, I printed this. I got sent this information from Adam Saxton, who owns 200 McAllister's Delis. I was talking to him about a site in Pryor Creek. And he said, Ricky, it's interesting that the timing of the call, because he said this document just came out. This is the information on 200 of the largest, biggest franchise owners in the U.S. in terms of these franchise groups. And when I say franchise groups, I'm not talking about people that own one or two. I'm talking about people that own 500 to 600 different brands, so well-capitalized companies that are looking to invest. And Adam's direction to me was, he said, you'll do yourself a great favor if you will begin to talk publicly in Pryor Creek about any local entrepreneurial interest in owning and operating a franchise. Many of these restaurants would like to come to smaller markets, but corporate takes the urban sites and pretty much assigns these rural and small market sites to their franchise operations. Most of your restaurants with national brands in Pryor Creek are actually franchises. And so if there are locals who have the capital and maybe want to get in the restaurant business, this is a great time to do it. And many of these folks are looking for local operators. That's one of our bits of feedback from Ace Hardware, is the availability of a local operator owner. So those are important for our future, for my work, and for the city's future as well. And that's all we have. I hope you be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
So I do have a question.
Okay.
And I think it will just help with, understanding the whole process. Do you have statistics that show the number of discussions that you have concerning Pryor,
Yes,
that go down to those that then request more information,
yes,
down to how many of them actually visit Pryor,
yes,
down to how many deals were closed?
yes.
Can you share those with us?
No.
I don't need
My
names.
servers are down. I have to get all that stuff.
Will you share those?
Yes,
with us?
absolutely.
Okay. I think having that kind of data
Okay.
will help us.
Most of these national brand retailers do not want their name spoken locally or known locally
I don't.
until a real estate transaction.
Yeah, I'm not asking for names, just
Yeah.
to begin with, just,
Yeah, Mr. Lees gets a report every month.
but I don't think
About
it
who we-
tracks all the way down to.
No, it doesn't, and there's a reason for that. And that's because of the sensitivity of the local, basically the real estate transaction. Part of our issue in Pryor Creek is not the availability of development land, but the price of it and how it equates to the rising interest rates and other things that the public sector doesn't
I
really
think you're-
focus on, but the private sector
I
does.
do think you're misunderstanding my question. It's not how many go down to, this is the location that X company bought.
Okay.
It's just how many discussions, how
Yes.
many of those discussions, if it's 500 discussions a month, do 20 of those result in additional requests for information? And out of that, 5 of them, site visits.
We'll
And
assemble that
I think
information.
the property across across the street may be, if I'm not mistaken, the first one that's closed,
It
Or-
hasn't closed yet.
or that has gotten that far. Is that correct?
Well, we've got several under contract
Okay.
in terms of, the private sector investment. We've had several people in town. They don't want to disclose who they are.
Sure.
But the mayor knows. And he's sworn to secrecy as well, so we'll share what's appropriate.
Yeah. Again, just asking for the number that has followed that trail, not who they are or where they are in
And
the
we'll
process.
get those. Again, I apologize. Those monthly reports are part of our server system, so several in our network
Sure.
contribute to that. Those servers have been down since last Wednesday, so we're operating just off email and,
Yeah, and Mayor has shared those. They just don't get into any kind of the detail that
there's a reason for
I'm
that.
looking for.
Yeah,
But I think I don't want names.
Okay.
Just numbers and percentages.
we'll do that,
Thank you.
okay?
I think what I'm saying, we've seen those reports, and it shows contacts with numerous businesses, and it names those businesses.
Yes,
Are
There's
those
a reason for
contacts
that.
made solely on behalf of the city of Pryor?
Yes,
Or
sir.
are those contacts made also on behalf of other municipalities?
Absolutely.
So it's for all municipalities? You don't
It's
get-
for all that I work for.
Right.
Yes,
So it's not just Pryor?
no, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many municipalities do you work for?
20 or so. Have 2 in Kansas, 2 in Arkansas, 2 in Texas, and the rest of them are in Oklahoma.
I have a question about the franchises. I'm curious about recruiting the local operators. Is there anything that you need from the city to help you develop that plan, or is there a plan already in works to recruit local operators?
There could be some assistance that might prove profitable, but really the bottom line and that is the capital available to the entrepreneur.
That makes sense, yeah.
How liquid they are. The franchises vary from, some of them are as easy to do as a $25,000, franchise fee. That's a one-time fee. And that buys you the ability to use a sign and a menu and get food. Some of them, Chick-fil-A franchises are incredibly expensive, and the McAllister's gentleman I was talking about, they like for their operators to have access or be able to touch $1.2 million.
Oh, wow.
So it's a little bit, sometimes a little bit expensive, and, you know, it limits the number of locals
Right.
that can do that because of the money involved.
And I would assume it's up to the person or entity wanting to purchase the franchise, that it's generally their obligation to find the land to put it on. I mean, I don't imagine corporate's coming in here looking for land and then.
Corporate, most of them have to have corporate approval of the site.
Right, but the corporate's not in here looking for the real estate, they're
No.
expecting the franchise. So it's a matter of also being able to find a location to
Yes,
put
sir.
these things.
Yep.
So it's a lot more than just, I'm interested and I've got some capital, you've got to have.
Got to have a site.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Good to know. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Ariana.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Next item is discussion and possible action regarding contributing funds to the 20% match of the countywide Safe Routes to School grant project to be included in a written support letter from the City Council. Presentation from Mays County Hope on behalf of Mays County Trails Alliance. Ariana.
Okay, I feel like I'm about to say a lot of information, so I apologize in advance. What you have in your packet right now is basically a summary of the grant opportunity that we're going after. So this is a federal grant through the U.S. Department of Transportation, and it's called the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. The exciting thing about this grant is it's a two-part thing. The first part of this grant is called the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, and that's what we're talking about today. But I just want to let you all know what the second part is before we talk about the rest of this first part, because that's why it's so exciting. The second part of this federal grant is the implementation piece of that. So essentially, if we're successful in our efforts to get a countywide comprehensive safety action plan, then we will be in a shovel-ready position to apply for the part 2 of the implementation. The exciting thing about this federal grant is there are millions and millions of dollars. And as some of you all know, it's really expensive to build a trail system. So we need millions and millions of dollars. And so it's very important that we are very precise and accurate on this first step, which is creating a countywide comprehensive safety action plan. Talking with the Trails Alliance, we have decided to go after this grant and focus on safe routes to school. And the reason that being is because several of our schools in the county are on highways and the shoulders are very, very narrow. And so it's unsafe for our students in the county to walk or bike to school. So this is one piece that we are wanting to focus on. With that said, we're partnering with a group called Olson. This group was super influential in helping implement the Northwest Arkansas Trails. And so my coworker Marty and I, what we've done to this point to get this grant going is we've approached all the jurisdictions in the county to plant a seed, kind of how I did last month. So with that said, though, we have been waiting on a budget because the person we're working with, he's creating this budget for us pro bono, obviously with the hopes that we'll give him work if we get the funding. But with that said, he has a full-time job and he's busy. And so long story short, I got these numbers Friday afternoon. I'm willing to share with anybody in the office. I'm passionate about being transparent, so this is no secret, if you don't mind passing one down. With that said, when I laid my eyes on these numbers, we know that we're going to have to divide and conquer this 20% match because it's going to benefit the whole county. And so we're hopeful that with the multiple jurisdictions, we're not only approaching town councils, we're approaching schools. And so with all of those players at the table, we were hopeful that the burden would be light to contribute to that 20% match. I got the numbers on Friday, and the total for the plan would be $400,000, meaning 20% is $80,000. Denny, the engineer who created this budget, because as we're presenting to all the councils, a big question was, are we going to have to pay as much as Pryor pays? Because, Pryor's bigger and whatnot. My explanation to them was, yes, Pryor's bigger. However, it's the more rural towns that have the schools on the highways that you're going to get an off-the-road trail. Therefore, those towns are going to benefit most because they're getting millions of dollars in trail funding, hopefully. So I brought that question back to Denny, the engineer that we're working with, and said, this is what we're dealing with the towns. How should we divide this 20% match? He recommended that we divide it just evenly between all the entities. Well, we're talking about 8 entities, so that's like $10,000 a piece. that I know, my coworker and I have went to all the town councils. We are aware that the smaller towns cannot afford $10,000. I don't even know if they can afford $5,000. So this morning, I put in a call to Mid-America Industrial Park, and I let them know the situation. And I have a meeting next Tuesday with them to find out if it's possible and how much they would be willing to contribute to that 20% match. However much they decide, the other jurisdictions are still responsible for contributing to the rest of what's left. With that said, I would like to, because I have council meetings tonight, all week, to give the same exact spiel. And I don't have the accurate numbers because I'm hoping the park will contribute some. But with that said, it would be wise if I could get an answer from this board and from all the councils I'll be talking to of at least an idea of an amount that we would be willing to give. And the reason why is because if I can, between all the council meetings I have this week, and let's say, this is just an example, I don't care how much you guys give, but let's say the EDTA commits to $5,000. And then let's say these 3 town councils I have this week also commit to $5,000. I can go to the park next week on Tuesday and say, listen, we got $20,000 already, we need $60,000 left. Can you contribute all of that $60,000? Or, what portion of that? So that's why, so my question to you all is, how much money is the EDTA willing to part ways with to contribute to this project? And I want to emphasize that this project is a benefit to the whole county for multiple reasons. Number one reason that we care about this is because it's the safety aspect. We care about our citizens and how they're traveling on their bikes and walking, whether that's to work, the grocery store, or whatever. Safety is number one. Another piece that we care about is the health piece of this. If there are trails and cycling options, more likely people are going to get a bike and use them, or walk and use these trails. And so that helps us with chronic diseases in our people. So we care about the safety, the health, and finally, we care about the economic value of this. If we can build a countywide trail system, this is going to be a huge tourism aspect. It's going to benefit the Dam Jam, all those cyclists that come. We currently have cyclists that go ride on our nature trail, and they're not even from here. They come just because they want to train elsewhere. And so if we can create a countywide trail system, the money that could come from the sales tax benefits as people come to enjoy that trail system will help the town of Pryor. And so that's why it's so important that we are involved in this plan. And so with that said, I got a sample support letter from Denny, and I tweaked it to say our information, but you'll notice in here there's a highlighted part that says that City of Pryor will commit X amount, and that's what we're going to have to fill out. So I'll pass this out to you, this support letter. But any questions and any recommendations?
Ariana, do you know how many miles of trail on that plan is inside Mid-America Industrial Park?
I don't have those numbers right now.
I can kind of visualize it because I've seen the map.
Yes. So the thing about the county trails plan is the county trails plan is in county limits. What we're talking about right now, the Safe Routes to School plan, all of that is within city limits.
Correct.
So we don't have the accurate numbers of what the numbers will be until we get to planning together, which would come after the funding, if we get it. In Jesus' name, we will.
So who are you referenced 8 entities.
Yes.
Who are those entities?
These are the entities, so obviously the City of Pryor, Shodo, Locust Grove, and Salina, and then those 4 schools. That's the 8 I'm counting. And the reason why I counted those 8 is because obviously the schools, and they do have a little bit of money, but the other ones that will be included, but they may not have a financial stake in it, are the towns of Adair. The reason why we're not asking them to have a financial stake in it is because ODOT has already funded their sidewalks in front of their schools, which will actually help this grant application. But because they already have a funded project, I'm not going to ask them to contribute money and then not get anything out of it. But Adair will be included in the plan. The town of Langley and Spavinaw, neither of those towns have schools, but we would like to include them in the plan because there are kids that bus to schools. And so theirs won't be a Safe Routes to School, it would be a Safe Routes to Bus Stop for their kiddos. So that's all those.
So why not the county?
Why not? Oh, the county, yes, the county, of course, is involved, and we want to approach them, so let's say 9 entities. But we have planted seeds with 2 of the 3 county commissioners, and we're working on another grant with them as well. So I'm not sure if they'll be able to contribute money, but we will be asking them to.
You got plenty.
Yeah.
So this would be more of a request for us to show support for the city to provide funds. Is that, or are you asking for us to become a 10th entity?
So however we can get this $80,000, I think if that means money's coming from EDTA and city, let's do it. But if it can only come from one entity, let's figure out which entity that is. But,
The city's already committed to trails.
right,
City's already committed to trails.
I'm talking about a financial commitment to the 20%.
Yes, I understand that. So it would make sense for the city,
Okay.
to budget something to that end.
Awesome.
I'm not sure that needs to come out of EDTA coffers. Probably should come out of city coffers.
Well, and, I mean, I'm just thinking here, but that may already be in a plan to put sidewalks in front of a school that you could just say, no, this is what's there, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So I think we have $60,000 budgeted for sidewalks.
Awesome.
This coming year, so. And by the way, that general fund is still something that's under construction. That general fund budget is still something under construction. So, Ariana, let's connect, and we'll try to identify an item there. In fact, we could probably create a new item for trails. Trails is already that's already something that we've done in the city, so.
Awesome. Yeah, so with all that said, will I get an estimated number before next Tuesday morning? Because
About this afternoon.
Amen. I'm thrilled about that. Yes, thank you so much.
So could we possibly amend this to say that we are recommending the city work on funding a portion of this?
Either that, we can
Or do we just need to-
Or we can table this and let it go to the city council to see what they say first, to see what kind of support. I mean, even for me, I understand, but, when we're talking about trails and sidewalks without seeing the plan or what we're talking about, and how much that impacts Pryor, and how much needs to be done in Pryor, as opposed to how much needs to be done in Locust Grove,
Right.
or Shoto, or Salina, it does make a difference to me.
Yeah.
Because we are a Pryor economic development. I understand we're all in the county together, but without seeing more, understanding exactly what's gonna happen. But what I've suggested would be to table, put it, that it's gonna be on the city council to see if they'll set a specific number
Okay.
that they're gonna provide for this. And then that allows it to come back here, if there needs to be further discussion, or maybe some economic,
Well, I am on the agenda for city council for next week for this exact agenda item. Thinking about timeline, this application is due September 15th, and I did notice that we're going to be maybe changing our meeting from the 12th to the 19th. So, and I want to just say, it's not my fault that this is all rushed. We've been waiting. For those of you who aren't familiar with the grant world, there's a lot of moving pieces, and you're waiting on so-and-so to do this, you're waiting on so-and-so to do this, and you can't act until those things are done. And so I do apologize for the rush that it seems, but I really think this is an opportunity we don't want to pass up, so. But I totally understand what Fred is saying, that we need to understand how this will impact the city of Pryor, and we won't know exactly what Pryor wants until we start planning with them specifically about the safe routes to school. Yes, Don?
Question, have you seen a copy of a plan that Olson has completed,
I haven't.
like this?
I haven't, but I can get my hands on one probably.
Well, it should be interesting. 400,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. Well, and also, because I agree, I put in a call to another engineer to say, I'm not an expert and I don't want to insult this person by saying this is too much, so can you help me? But I had to leave a voicemail. But with that said, I also have a call, and similar to how IQC, the work that was done with IQC helped Main Street get that number down for the streetscape plan. They got a deal because of that groundwork with IQC. I do have a call into Denny to see, since some groundwork has been done through the Mays County Trails Plan, If at least that community, what did he call it, the public involvement piece could maybe, the price could go down. Because I agree, it is very expensive. But I will also say that this grant application, the minimum to apply is $200,000. So I don't think it's completely out of the realm, you know? And the maximum, I think, what was it, like I think it was 5 million, so.
On this page from Olson, I'm assuming that under the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, that is in some way matching some kind of requirements from the grant.
Yes, correct, yeah, because the exciting thing about this community safety action plan is it will be federally approved, and so the feds aren't going to pay for a plan that's just going to sit on the shelf. That's what's so exciting about this part two. If the feds are paying for this plan and they already have a plan to implement those plans for this second grant.
Yeah, so safety action, under phase 3, the safety action plan, $100,000, the bicycle and pedestrian plan, the safe routes to school plan. So I don't think $400,000 is out of is necessarily out of reason, but it's an estimate. It's an estimate at this point.
Right. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, so I think the consensus on that is we need to table it until we see what the city is going to do and what more of the plan is.
Okay.
Need a motion to table?
Making that motion.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Darla, we have a motion and a second, if you'll do the roll.
Dirk,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sorrell.
Yes.
Okay, our next item is discussion and possible action regarding creation of a sports economic impact grant in order to fund grants to youth sports organizations who currently utilize city facilities for their sports complex. So in your packet, there is a copy of a grant outline, and this continues what we have had on here now, Ariana, for 6 months.
Yeah, several.
Talking about what we can do with the sports organizations to help facilitate repairs to their facilities, which is something that brings in economic impact and funds into all of Mays County, but specifically Pryor for these organizations. And how we can ultimately get to a goal of the Cherokee Nation or other nations helping with some funds that are available maybe through ARPA or other outreach programs that those tribes are doing outside of ARPA. So Mayor and Ariana and Jared and I have met separately about the sports, and we've contacted each of the main sports groups that utilize city facilities, which are soccer, football, baseball, and softball, and asked them what their immediate needs were, asked what they would need within a 60 to 120-day window that they could do now that would provide a positive impact for their facility. We've received positive responses from all of them. We did ask them to go ahead and fill out a grant, which is the next agenda item, but as Ariana said, it seems like in the world of grants, they're always rushed and they're always kind of last minute. What I am requesting is that the EDTA look at creation of a $5,000 grant pool for the sports facilities that are in Mays County or in Pryor that are on city-owned properties. So again, football, baseball, softball, and soccer. $5,000 is small compared to what some of these groups need, but with the feedback that we've gotten, $5,000 total, which would be $1,250 an organization, would help them do things immediately that would impact their upcoming session and seasons, and something that they could do without going through a bunch of hoops of bringing in contractors and things like that. So that's kind of my spiel, but for some of you already know what we're looking at. Are there any questions that I can answer or that maybe Jared or Mayor can answer?
Well, it seems first that what we would need to, and I think what 8 is addressing, I would think, is just to approve the creation of this grant, but also this form to be utilized to
Yes.
try to access that grant. So it seems the first item of business would be to discuss the necessity of the grant. And two, if there is, then to approve this form for making applications for that grant. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I think, it'd be nice if we had everybody here. I think this trust is wanting to get involved in more and having some kind of an economic impact other than just sitting up here and hearing reports and hearing this and that. I do personally think it's an opportunity to help some of these local organizations. I do think it has an impact on the community from an economic standpoint, because there's a lot of people that come in and utilize these, and a lot of people come in from out of town, and hopefully they're spending money. And also, quite frankly, a lot of these organizations, let's put it as kindly as I can say, were terribly misinformed when a bond package was voted on. And I'm not saying that happened by anybody sitting in this room, but they were terribly misinformed and misled as into what may be available for them to help. And so I know they are in desperate need of help. So I have no problem with us establishing grants and a form, approving the form to be utilized if that's the first step. Now, I don't know if when we establish grants, if we establish a set amount, or we just establish a grant and we can decide. But probably would be best to limit it, since we do have limited funds ourselves right now.
That was our thought, or my thought, was to limit it, make it a reasonable amount, do show that we are serious about utilizing the funds at our discretion to.
If they do get these funds too, and obviously I guess they would report back to us the use of them, will that also help generate interest from maybe Cherokee Nation or other potential resources, a Mayor Foundation? I know the Mayor Foundation likes to see, okay, you're getting some help, what are you doing yourself to help contribute? We're not going to come in and pay the full
Right.
price. But hopefully this would be kind of a seed
And
to help with those kind of things.
right, and that's exactly the line of thinking that we were going with, is because, for example, we thought the hotel motel tax would be a great opportunity for these sports entities to apply. And I reviewed the application, and there is a spot on there that says, what matching dollars do you have? And so us being able to gift this to them with, of course, the right data and, accountability, will put them in a great spot to be able to apply for the hotel motel tax, which if granted that, then they can turn around and show that to OD Mayor or Cherokee Nation and say, this is how the city helped, this is how we've helped ourselves, now we need more help. So.
And I believe that, Ariana, we've gotten some feedback from council members with Cherokee Nation that have said, it will help with us securing funds if we can show that those organizations or that the city or whoever is putting monies into this project or into those sites, so that we don't have something like a donation that sits there for many years and not be utilized.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So that is the agenda item number 8. And if we could get a motion to approve the creation of the grant and the dollar amount at $5,000 for this current round and the form, that would be appreciated.
You're talking about $5,000 for each?
No,
potential
$5,000 total.
Total amongst any, and so we have $5,000 sitting there for people to come. So we're not talking about each individual one, we're talking about, we just have a $5,000.
$5,000 pool.
For the
this initial-
sports.
For the sports.
Mm-hmm. That are on city-owned property.
Okay. I don't know, I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know if that $5,000 is going to be awful thin.
That's interesting, one is 400,000, now we're talking 5,000, that's $1,500 per
I
sport.
mean, we have currently,
$1,250.
in our access, something like $87,000 or something, don't we?
84.
Correct.
84.
84.
You guys met with these groups, does $1,500 sound like?
Yeah, I don't know that.
I'd like,
$1,000
I think that,
creates a drop in the bucket.
if I could, Mr. Chairman,
Absolutely.
I would rather see $5,000 for each one of the organizations perhaps be offered as grant. as a grant, provided that they produce the form and produce the application correctly. Remember, I think we should remember that the way these grants work is they do the work and they submit the receipts, and then we reimburse from those receipts. And so that's the way the hotel motel tax allocation grant works, and my understanding is that would probably the way
Yes,
this
that
works
is-
as well.
That is the way this.
I think $5,000 for each of the four entities, I think would be a much better way for those organizations to be able to, so up to $5,000, it might be $3,000.
Sure, no, I am completely open to that.
And like I said, I still go back to how they were all terribly misled. It would be nice to be able to provide some assistance, and these are, most of these, they're operating on city-owned property. And which the way it's kind of maintained is kind of embarrassing. So I wouldn't have an issue either with the potential right now of a sports economic impact grant up to $5,000 for any entity making an application and approving this form. And if that needs to, that can be in the form of a motion. Hopefully that's enough to discern what I'm talking about.
Well, I think if we, would we be able to amend item number 8 to include the form and also to include the amount?
Well, just possible action regarding creation of a sports economic impact grant in order to fund grants to use. So I don't think we're limited by an amount in there, and I think we're improving the establishment of the grant in the form, and with it being the grant itself up to $5,000 per entity. I mean, we could have other sports entities come in and bank. That doesn't mean we're going to grant them or give them those monies. But I think right now we're just setting up the structure,
Correct.
and we get to more specifics on 9.
I agree. Items worded loosely enough to do that.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Darla, will you do the roll?
Berger,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sordahl,
Yes.
Dirk.
Yes.
Okay, next item is discussion and possible action regarding granting the Sports Economic Impact Grant to, and we have listed Pryor Youth Baseball, Pryor Youth Football, Mays County Soccer, and Lake Area Softball Association. I would, at this time, like to table A and B, as we have not gotten their applications yet. We do have documentation and contact with each of those entities that, yes, they are in need. They are working on their grant application, and they are working on getting some bids on those.
Well, and I think they would be spurred on if they see if something happens with soccer and softball.
I agree.
The importance of getting something in. So, yeah, I don't think there can be any discussion about football and baseball right now because they just simply don't have an application in.
Correct. And so for Mays County Soccer, I'm the representative, so I will do that discussion in a moment. I believe we have a representative here for softball. If you'd like to come up, you want to tell us anything or discuss anything before we go through it, or just see if we have questions?
How are you going to do it? Well, come on up.
Come on
and
up.
Tell us about it.
And thank you for coming.
Yes, thanks for having us. I'm Camber Fields, for the ones that don't know me. I'm with the Softball Association here in Pryor. And we had a couple tournaments there at the facilities this summer, and we were originally thinking fences was our number one concern, and we quickly figured out that we needed shade. That facility does not have a bit of shade over the fan bleachers. Over the dugout bleachers, it does have the tin roof. So I started doing some checking once I was informed about this possibility. And, you know, we were originally wanting to do cantileers or the soft type mesh shade. And the quotes I got for it was $87,000, and this would be for 6 sets of shade structures over the bleachers. And the other quote that we received, I think, was, it was 50,000 for materials only. That's not even including putting it up. So I decided that probably was not practical. Didn't sound very useful of money to me. So I decided to contact a local company that would be putting up a metal awning, which would be like red iron and then putting tin over the top of it. The quote I got back from them is 15,000. So I'm submitting a proposal to you guys for 5,000 of that coming from this. And then I've submitted a hotel motel grant of 5,000. And then we will use our own funds of 5,000 if we don't have another source to get the other 5,000. So a new board has took over this facility in the last year. We're trying to get things, do improvements on the property. Fencing is probably our next concern. We got a hotel motel grant earlier in the spring to fix up the concession stand building that needed to be repaired. And that work is actually going to start this week. So we're trying to make some steps in the right direction. We're just taking one bite at a time just due to funding. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I think you've done great work so far. I do have a question. Are you familiar, or have you heard of the O.D. Mayer Foundation grant?
I've seen that on an email, but I don't have any other information on that.
Awesome. Well, if you want just that 5,000 that you have left, I'd be happy to, show you, and because it's a super simple grant application, and I'd be happy to go over it with you and review it. That way, hopefully, you don't have to get any money out of your own.
Maybe we could visit afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
How often are they meeting?
They have quarterly meetings.
So one should be coming up, I would think.
I think there is one in August, I believe, so.
So Mary, when you get the hotel motel tax, do you have a certain time to use that fiscal year, or do you have?
Normally, the hotel motel tax is open all year long because it's accumulating all year long. The hotel motel tax allocation board will meet when there is an application.
So we can span over into another budget cycle or another fiscal year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, as long as
As long as it was approved before.
as long as it's approved, as long as the funds are there. And there are funds in hotel motel that have carried over, yes.
So I'm assuming if we do something like this, because it's new territory for us, if we approve, let's say, sake of this discussion, we approve a $5,000 grant. That then is dependent upon them coming back, showing they have all the funds and the plans, and they're ready to do the project. We can then provide the money. Is that what we're talking? And is there a time limit that we need to set to have this completed by?
So for this one, we asked that it be something that they could complete within the next 60 to 120 days.
Okay, so we are going to put, and then I guess it could be renewed upon proper application, but it would be nice to have a time frame. That would probably help get some funding from somebody else too, if you know you're running a time frame.
You bet.
To get the monies. And the way I know construction works and to get those bids, 120 days would probably be more reasonable than 60.
Yes. So, and I believe that what we would ask for as well is if you're using somebody and they're doing the work and there's a contract, that the contract would be submitted so that we have something to show what we're paying for.
Okay.
If it's something that the entity is using sweat equity from their club to, put the awnings up or whatever,
Exactly.
we would need to see that that project was completed prior to us releasing the funds, just so there is a checks and balance.
The way Hotel Motel does it is we require a final expense report of all of everything spent before the funds are released.
And I'd recommend that we do that as well.
Okay. And we'll work out the details.
Okay. Do you need anything more from me other than just a bid from who I plan to use right now?
Just the bid,
Okay. Okay.
correct.
So can we make that motion today to approve?
Yes.
I'll make that motion to approve $5,000 to the Softball Association.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And I take it it's with the conditions we've just outlined.
Yes. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Darla, if you will. do a roll call.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sordahl,
Yes.
Durr,
Yes.
Berger.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yes,
guys. I
thank you so
appreciate it.
much. And great work.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Mr. Ritchie, concerning the next item. Since I will be presenting it, I would abstain from any vote. Does that leave us with a quorum for that line item?
What's our total members?
7 members and
Oh, well, yeah.
4 here.
You
Your
just-
abstention's a
it's
negative
considered
vote.
a no vote.
Yeah, so you're fine.
Okay.
You're
So
fine.
you can go back and explain that.
I'm sick, I'll be back to the soccer.
People.
So the grant application that you have in here from Mays County Soccer is based on some needs that we have for our upcoming season. It's involving removable goal sets for our U6 and U8 teams. Prior to last season, we were using metal goals that were about head height for 4- and 5-year-olds to run right into. We took out that issue and we put in some soft goals, but we were only able to purchase some fairly cheap ones that get damaged quickly and we're constantly chasing those around. We also have an issue behind our U14 and U16 field where the balls just roll into a ditch that who knows what's in there. It drains from the cemetery through the ditch. It's dangerous. We have players that try to jump across it. We need a more permanent solution. We have found some netting that we can put up on a temporary basis, take down. It's not staying out there exposed to the weather. We're not risking anybody cutting it. That's a cost of $800 to $1,200. The movable goals are $700 to $900. And then we have a need to update the plumbing in our bathrooms. We have toilets and urinals that are not working. We've got them closed off. If any of you have been to youth sports complexes, it's hard to keep a door locked that they don't find some way into. And just a rough estimate on that was, $500 to $1,000. Since I'm here, I will say that I went on the low end of that, knowing kind of where we were headed originally with the grant process. That amount is probably closer to $2,500. But we also have bathroom tissue holders that are broken, outdated, the rolls of toilet paper sitting on the back of the toilet, which wind up inside the toilet and attempted to be flushed. So ours is really a grant or a request to help do some overall upkeep and maintenance at our facility. And then if our plan is to go to hotel motel tax and to OD mayor, which until Ariana brought those up, had never really been considered. But our ultimate goal is to put some sweat equity and put some of these updates in place at the soccer complex, and then be able to show Cherokee Nation, the city, work that is being done on that complex, and eventually have that facility lighted. We're, I think, the only complex besides football that does not have lights. It works out really well now that they have extended daylight savings time or shrunk whatever it was they did. But in November, at 4:30, you've got little kids out there trying to use a flashlight, or their parents really think they're being helpful when they start the cars and shine the lights out on the field, and all they're doing is blinding everybody. So that's part of our long-term goal, but that is our request. It was not as eloquent as softballs, but that's our request, which at this point I believe is about $3,600.
Yeah, 36.
If your request is $3,600, but you went on the low end, do you want to amend it to where you can, because this is just discussion, is it a possibility that we grant $5,000, and if you just come back with us receipts of $3,600, then the rest can still stay
And
with us?
again, that's the way hotel motel does it. If they don't spend as much as their grant is, they only get what they spent.
We could spend this $5,000 and do it responsibly, yes.
The application was for 36.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you add everything up, though, the application
And are
was,
we doing the, I mean, I'm just looking, I mean, the appearance of propriety is extremely important in how we handle this. You know, we have an application, because obviously softball's coming, and we're granting part of that, and they're gonna be good Manship funds. Is the purpose of this to grant something to stimulate getting Manship funds for the rest of it? And then you could also then supplement a request with more detail later. I mean, I'm just thinking, you know, Lord knows, I mean, I've got a soft spot in my heart for soccer because of my daughters, but it seems to be appropriate to do this so we stay uniform with how we're handling this. I mean, they had a $15,000 need, they were matching $5,000. Right now, you're giving us a $3,600. How much of that do we want to help match?
And
to
that
stimulate
was
that?
the
And then-
intent.
And then you still have a cap there that doesn't say you can't come back, and we have the numbers, and, you know, you may come back with numbers next time that takes us 36 to easily $15,000.
There is no reason that we could not table this until coming back with football and baseball.
There might be, probably would be, from appearances and also to handle this properly, that would probably be the best. Because you're not gonna do anything within the next 30 days.
No.
That would probably be appropriate, and also gives us the ability to get information to baseball and football. They have an understanding of what the possible cap here is, and we're
Correct.
working towards that.
And as I said, when this was filled out,
Right.
I asked soccer to fill it out with the idea that
You can get $1,000.
we could get $1,000 and that then we were going to ask for the remaining funds from OD Mayor and Hotel Motel. It just turned out that you went way high. No, you were great. You were
worked
great.
out.
So I think it would be
We can simply
tabled.
show this, yeah, or no action at this point in time, or and
Why
allow
don't you
you
just show a
to.
motion to table A, B, and C,
Amen.
9A, B, and C.
Okay.
I'd make the motion that the application for grant from soccer, Mason County Soccer be tabled to our next meeting, and they'd be given the opportunity also to amend their application.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Darla?
Now, is that to table A, B, and C?
Yeah, and there's really nothing to table in A, and B, because we don't have anything from them.
Right.
So I think that's just D. And they have the opportunity, if they get it in, it can be on the agenda for consideration next time.
Okay. Okay, Sordahl,
Yes.
Dur,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes. Okay, our next item is discussion and possible action regarding creation of a loan program and/or grant process for assistance to downtown building owners in updating or restoring storefronts. And this is an item of discussion, kind of going along with what we just did with the grant of if we are going to get serious and get in the business of helping spur economic development and what can be done in Pryor and what this entity is here for, we need to put some processes in place, and if we're going to get into the aspects of some loans or grants to business owners, we probably need a very formal process that is very direct and very spelled out, so that everybody has an equal chance, and that we're not discussing the nuances of each individual idea. It's more of a, what are your thoughts, and what would our next step be? And Mr. Ritchie, that may be a question for you, of how do we start down this process?
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think our Main Street Board has already been doing some grants to local businesses. They probably have a system that they use, and if we wanted to mirror that system, it would probably be efficient. So to confer, perhaps, if that's a system that has worked well for Main Street, it may be something that we would also want to use.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, is how is this different from Main Street's program? And if it isn't different, excuse me, if it's not different, then is the intent then to just give more opportunity to these business owners so that they can maybe apply for the Main Street program and the city program to double their chances or double their amount?
The short answer is yes. The long answer is Main Street has a dedicated place that they can utilize their grants, I believe.
Yeah, do you want me to speak?
Yeah, please. EDTA can go further out.
Okay, awesome.
The Main Street program, yes, only can be given out through our downtown corridor, which is established that we report to the state of Oklahoma. Number one. Number two, it's only available to our partners. And so if you're not a partner with us, you're not eligible for a grant. And number three, the amounts that we're able to give varies from year to year. And so with us coming off of a couple of COVID years and with us being mostly self-funded through partnerships and fundraising, our grant pool is significantly lower than what it has been in the past. And even at its highest, the max that we give is $1,000 matching. And so if that helps at all, and that's for a little bit smaller projects, such as painting the outside, or we've done the awnings, which is all super helpful. But if this is something that could be used for an example, helping take the tin down and restoring some of that historic brick behind there, those are things that we aren't yet able to help with, that you guys could come in and provide that support.
And to kind of piggyback off of that, so you have a business owner that makes application to Main Street for a grant to take the metal off of a building. There's still some anxiety about what happens when that metal comes down and how quickly can you put it back up before anybody notices what's behind it. But we could alleviate some of that anxiety if they knew that there was a program behind the scene or behind that grant that said, if you pull that building tin down and you've already made the application, we know what the plan is, we've already approved the loan, say, that if that comes down, we will be there with a loan amount up to $10,000 that you can use to repair what is behind there. You know, I think that's something that you and I talked about. There's a lot of anxiety with those building owners once you pull that down, and it's not just local to or defined to downtown, it's all over the city. And this is to kind of address some of those problems of buildings that just sit there because everybody's afraid of it, and then it gets to the point to where you just have to tear it down.
Right. I love this idea, and I think it's definitely a need. I'm just curious about, I know your $10,000 was just an example, but considering we have around 80+ thousand, I'm just wondering, how are we going to cap ours to make sure that we're not spending more than what we have, which obviously we can't spend more than what we have, but you know what I'm saying? Like, we need to be able to have some type of guidelines or like, is it 10,000 up to 5 entities, or, you know what I'm saying?
I think it's going to have to be on a case-by-case
Right.
basis. And, you know, if somebody came in, I'm just going to use another agenda item as an example. If somebody came in right now and said, you know what, I will completely restore the Castle Theater, all I'm short is $80,000. I think we should see the plan, we should see what they are, make sure they have that financial capacity, but why wouldn't we use those funds, especially if it's in a loan over a defined period that's getting paid back?
The funds that are coming to you are coming from the tax that was passed as part of the financing issue. And that is for the Main Street corridor, which is defined in that, geographically.
The funds we're talking about, the ones that come from the sale of the properties and also from the money that the city budgeted.
As long as you were not using those funds
think we're talking
derived
about
from that
using those
tax,
funds.
then you can go outside of that corridor,
We're
absolutely.
talking about using the monies from that's been budgeted, that we've transferred into that account, and hopefully we transfer another 50,000 here. And then also the 34 or whatever that is we realized from the sale of the vacant lots that the city had purchased at Treasurer's resales. So we're not talking
Make sure
about any
that the
of the
money
funds.
that's coming from the city is not coming from that tax money.
Sure, we would have to make a distinction.
Yeah.
And it's possible we'd have to have two programs, one that very clearly was using the tax and one that was very clearly using the other.
And so we're a long way from, I mean, somebody's got to put together some, you know, are we talking about grants, are we talking about loans?
Right.
What are we talking about? I mean, so I don't know if you have forms.
Yes.
Sometimes forms are nice places to start, to be able to look at to form some kind of grant/loan program?
We do, we have it, spring and fall is typically how we do it. We have an application process, and so I can send that over. That way, like you said, we have something to kind of, or you have something you can use and tweak to however you want to do it. But the way that ours work is, we have an amount, budgeted per year based off of what we made the previous year. And it doesn't matter how many we get, it is case-by-case basis. If we get one applicant that we just think fits our mission and, what we need, then all that money could go to it. If we get multiple by the spring deadline, then we can say, okay, we have enough for this, this, and this, or go back to them and say it that way. That way we're not ever overextending and it just be a free-for-all
Correct.
process, so.
So would it be acceptable to have this amended to create a committee to look at and make a presentation later for a loan program and/or grant program?
Or it might be helpful too to get some forms and get them distributed amongst the trust members, actually, so we can take a look at it and see what we're talking.
Yeah, because I'm curious of how we would, I love how she does the matching of the 1,000. I'm assuming it's 50/50, right? You do give 1,000, they have to spend 1,000. So yeah, we might just want to consider what our match looks like. 50/50 may be too much, maybe it's 80/20 or whatever. But yeah, I think a committee or something like that would be helpful to come up with those logistics.
Anywhere in there, and Jenny, maybe this, do you address building codes? Making sure, you're gonna pump all this money into storefronts or whatever, and yet the building doesn't meet building codes.
Well, and obviously, there's gonna have to be plans that would be submitted
Yes.
for the loan or for the grant, and they're gonna have to comply with codes. I mean, there's just no doubt about that.
And ours are specifically for facade improvements, so it's not gonna be anything that's gonna mess with any structure to.
Okay, see.
Yeah, so that's what ours is too, and that could be a differentiation between ours and yours, would be, that ours is more for things that wouldn't be load bearing. It's more, like I said, facade improvements.
So if it is good with the trust, I would like to see that amended to say creation of a committee to look into this, and I think Jenny should be on that, myself, and I don't know if it would be better to have, or both, have Mayor and Mr. Ritchie on that, so that we are considering building codes, or we're considering the law, the legal side of it.
And of course, I mean, all you have to say is, your application has to comply with codes. I mean, right now, we just need to decide, do we want to do a grant process? Do we want to do a loan process? What does that look like? And I agree with you, I think it has to be a case-to-case basis. And so, if we just have forms that we can start looking at, say, okay, this is how you apply for a grant, or this is how you apply for a loan. I mean, I think that's the stage we're at right now. I don't think there's any doubt, we all want to do this. We want to start utilizing funds to help provide with some economic impact. But as far as, right now, we just need to get just a basic platform for, here's a grant application, here's a loan application.
I think forming your committee is a proper way to go about it, and then a subsequent action item in front of the,
And a report back until we do get that, to that stage.
because you'd want to talk about a budget for each year for that. You'd want to talk about the application itself, and timeframes for submission and all that. Which,
Jenny, surely there's other communities that we could probably pick what they're doing with grants and loans and all of those,
Yeah.
and use that as a foundation maybe to start.
Yeah, I can reach out to the Main Street Network, both statewide and nationally, to see
Yeah.
if anyone has a program like that.
And I think we can handle all that in the committee. So I think at this point, we would need a motion to create the committee as discussed and report back with the committee's findings at the next meeting.
I'll make that motion. Unless that was a motion, then I'll second it.
is your motion?
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Okay, we have a second. Darla, if you would do the roll, please.
Durr,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sordahl.
Yes. My suggestion is just get the committee, obviously, it'd be great to have her on there to get the impact from, and yourself, and, just, and more trust members too.
Okay.
Just don't have a quorum, where you need to have agenda problems, but I think Darrell would probably do an outstanding job.
Okay. Is that what he gets for not being here?
Yeah, you get voluntold.
Tell him I said that too.
Our next item is discuss, possibly recommend council action regarding Castle Theater. Mr. Mayor, if you want to.
So, probably, Mr. Chairman, you and I can tag team on this because both of us have visited with different entities. You visited with Chamber of Commerce Board. And we also visited with the Main Street Board. So after the last EDTA meeting, then there was action then to created then to pursue these two entities to ask them what they thought, to ask them what their impressions were, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what we came from both of those entities is that we're sorry to see it go, but it's probably time. And then there were comments about taking components of that building and perhaps using components of that building in our wayfinding placemaking project in our downtown corridor and also in the gathering space that we're doing over here. So using components of the building for posterity's sake to be able to retain some of those things. So that's kind of where we are right now, and in a process of deciding perhaps how we proceed with Castle Theater.
I would add that Main Street was very sad that it was being looked at to being torn down, but they were very quick to say they would take the charge and the lead in recouping any of those pieces that could be used, or recovering those pieces that could be used throughout the city or in the downtown landscape. The chamber, I think they were the same place that the EDTA was at. It is sad that it has gotten to that point. It is sad that it has deteriorated to that point, but there is not a lot that we can do at this point other than tear it down and hope that there is a better use for that site. And to go to Mr. Stott's comment earlier, I think that it is a problem that so much of our city infrastructure or buildings that have been gifted throughout the years have been allowed to get to that state. I know in the conversations that I've had with Mayor, things that he has pointed out that they are doing is they have a plan for making repairs to the Graham Memorial Center. They have a plan for the pool that is being acted on.
We have a plan for the pocket park.
I was fixing to say the pocket park. I just heard that was in your presentation and in your streetscape. I think those are things that we don't always do a good job of saying, here are the things that we're doing, here are the things that are positive. Yes, this is a negative, this is a bad item, but we can't lose these three positives to not even really save the one negative. And I hate that, but, kind of is what it is at this point. And nobody in this room had a lot to do with what happened to the Castle Theater or those other structures, but we're doing the best we can to try to save the remaining. So.
Now, I might also add that this morning I had a conversation with Terry Lamar and asked him if he would be willing to go into the Castle Theater and to go around the Castle Theater and identify items that we should keep for posterity's sake. And he agreed to do that. And so I'll also have someone go in with him and to take photos of those things. And so it's not going to be a decision that that the mayor makes or that Mr. Lamar makes, but we'll be able to have some input in that. So this is not a process that I want to just slam bam, let's do this right now and force it through. I want to give some thought to it and do what's appropriate.
So did the Main Street vote to recommend to take it down?
There wasn't a voting process through us. We just had discussion. And our thoughts, like Adam said, was, yes, we encompass historical preservation, but the Main Street group that is what it is now didn't have anything to do with the upkeep previous, and we're just at a point where we understand, and either way, whatever decision is made, we want to make sure that we somehow use the historical elements, which is why we suggested using that rock into the streetscape plan going forward, so. Because we don't have a bucket of money to save it, and, and so, plus past saving, who's going to maintain it, we also don't have that, and so.
That's a number that's been.
So Barbara, did the chamber take a vote on this?
Oh.
Did the chamber take a vote on this?
We've talked, we've all been talking about this for an awfully long time.
But have not had a vote to make a specific recommendation, I take it. Right?
We, Adam was at our meeting last month.
Yes.
And we discussed it at length.
Right.
Because he was there and we knew he would be
Right.
making some decisions. And the basic thing is that it has deteriorated
Oh,
to a point that.
I'm not arguing that. I guess my question is, there was no specific vote taken.
There was no specific vote taken at the chamber, but the chamber board stated that they were in agreement that it should be torn down. I don't know how they did their minutes. I mean, that's.
Okay, but I mean, there wasn't a specific motion with
And
specific seconds.
what was your question?
Did the chamber consider a motion with a second to make a recommendation to the city council to have the building completely removed? Or was there just discussion?
It was a discussion, there was a vote, but it was a vote for the chamber. It was not a vote to come to the city council with
Okay.
recommendation.
Okay.
I'm not sure at this point that it is, I guess we could do something, but that it's our decision. It is a city building and it has been. I will tell you that one of the things, I may have mentioned it last time, when we were doing Angel Tree, we needed a storage place badly. So Mayor Trammell offered that the front part of it, which is the least contaminated of the whole building, and we put clothing in there that we actually had, that what could not be washed had to be thrown away because just the mold that's totally in the building. And the way we've looked at it is like everyone else, once Highway 20 was recut, and it took away pretty much all the frontage of that building. I have sat through, I can't tell you how many discussions on what could be done with it, and if it had parking and if it had frontage, there are cool things with that building, like working artist studios and all kinds of things. But just because, it's a shame, but we've talked about it a lot for years.
Well, I understand, and we've been talking about, my point, trying to get back to kind of meanwhile back at the ranch. The Main Street hasn't specifically made a vote, they just have expressed concern and would like the historical things saved from it. I don't think you've taken I think we had a discussion, I think of what we thought individually, but then I had the mayor say also, well, this doesn't need to be a slam bam thing. And so I guess all of that saying, I'm just not comfortable today with 4 of us sitting here instead of 7 of us, to make some specific recommendation about removing this building without, when we have other details that are still in consideration. Are there things that can be saved? Are there this, you know, so I personally am not comfortable, 4 of us, making a recommendation on this without having everybody here and having the other information about maybe what Terry Lamar says, or what can be salvaged, or what can, or what should be done with it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd recommend that we either do a no action or do a table on this motion.
We can do a no action.
Either way.
Can I ask a few questions?
Yes.
I just kind of like to know, has anybody checked in what's even going to cost to tear it down? I think you're going to be surprised how expensive it is, and, you know, could that money be used towards repairing it, you know, versus just tearing it down? Also, if you do tear it down, what plans do you have for the lot? I think you're going to be very limited on between setbacks. You may have a lot that you can't do anything with but mow, you know, so that needs to be considered. Also, I know people keep saying it's beyond repair. I'm not convinced of that. It's a very solid building. It withstood the tornado. I haven't been in it lately, but back when I was on the council, I went on the roof, and I also went in the attic, and it's a very well built building. I know there's probably mold issues, but I don't know what extent that would take care of the mold. I just really would like to see y'all, you know, kind of look into possibilities of saving it, but I know
The last estimate that I received was a verbal estimate from ARC, the folks that do demolition. They said somewhere around $80,000 is what they said, as far as demolishing the building.
Yeah, see, the 80,000 would have almost done the roof. You know, I'm kind of kept further. I don't know what it costs nowadays.
I'd say, Drew, if you wanted to go in with Terry Lamar, he's probably gonna go in there in the next few days. Go in there with him and be sure you put a mask on and protect your lungs.
I just, don't rush into things. That's a historical building.
No. Yeah, I'm not wanting to rush it. I'm wanting to do the right thing. So we continue to try to pursue what that is.
So we will,
Just no action.
just no action on that one. The next item is discussion with trust members concerning the next step in assisting local sports organizations in securing additional funds. I will say, I think we've probably already covered this in depth, and we can just no action on that and move on to the next one, which is a review of the financial report.
Mr. Chairman, there is at this point $84,059.80 in the EDTA fund. It's Fund 98. I am proposing in the general fund budget that we should approve in a week, that we budget another $50,000 in that for EDTA, and then after that is budgeted and approved, then I would encourage EDTA to ask for a transfer of those funds over to EDTA at some point in time in the next few months.
Okay.
That would bring a total of $134,059.80.
And that is not including any of the funds that are for economic development in the downtown corridor, correct?
That does not include any of the funds that come from the bond receipts that we add to each month.
And Fred has alluded to these lots in what created that $34,000. But are there additional lots that the trust has?
There are some additional lots that are in the abatement process right now. There are a few that we own. I would recommend to, in order to make those maybe attractive to a builder or developer, wait until we have some of those gathered up and,
Sure, but there are no additional empty lots that have already
no,
been taken by the city?
no.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will say, the contractor who bought the last ones is doing an excellent job.
He's doing, yeah, outstanding.
Yes, sir.
Really nice.
Yes. And I will say on top of that, if you've gone down to Third and Edith, a couple of those, they have built duplexes on. The one at Third and Edith is an individual that is building their home on that lot. So I think we're seeing residences coming in and rental units, so it's kind of a mix, which I think was the point of selling those at the time. Any questions on the financials?
I would also add that the Main Street bond account adds somewhere between $9,000 and $10,000 a month to that account. Right now, the total fund equity is $271,636.92. So that continues to mount up. Those funds are the citizens' funds that need to be utilized in the downtown corridor.
And how much of that is already allocated for?
$91,000.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
So that's when we look at potential loans and grants, that's particularly another source to be looked at that would just have to be committed solely to the downtown corridor.
Yes. Economic development updates from Mayor? Any others?
Due to the hour, I think unless you have any questions, perhaps we should move on.
Mr. Crisp?
Same, ditto.
Okay, the last item on here is discussion and possible action regarding rescheduling the September meeting from the 12th to the 19th. So as chairman, I think that I have an obligation and a duty to be here. That may be incorrect, but I think that every committee member has a duty to be here with each meeting. So I cannot be here on the 12th. I am recommending that we move the meeting to the 19th at the same time. I understand that may cause some conflict, but more than anything, I want to spur the discussion that we need the committee members here so that we do not have items that we put off until the next month because we don't have a sufficient number of people here.
Well, with that, with plenty of advance notice, just take into account, it's more important for you to be here on the 19th than for me to be here on the 12th. So I just, advance warning, I will be out of state, hopefully, on the 19th.
That's your one. Hopefully the others are here.
I can be here the 19th.
Okay. So is that a motion and a second?
I'll make that, yep. I'll make the motion that we change the meeting to the 19th.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor, or nope, I'm sorry. Made it all the way to the end. Darla, if you'll do the roll.
Let's see where we are.
Durr,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sordahl.
Yes, y'all have fun.
Any unforeseeable business? If not, we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Need a second?
Second.
Darla, if you'll do the roll.
Berger,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Sordahl,
Yes.
Durr.
Yes.